everybody. Welcome to It Was Tuesday. I am your host, James Chen, aka Jay Chenzor. I'm exhausted right now. Just got back from my week-long trip to Saudi Arabia for the Esports World Cup. And it was, what an event. What an event. Honestly, there's so many aspects to talk about, but largely, one of the biggest things about that event was the results. I mean, I swear, everything that we thought was going to happen didn't happen. It was actually one of the craziest results that I can think of in recent memory. I'm just going to bust out this list over here. So, let's take a look at the results and see what's going on. Again, Liquipedia, great page here. If you want to find this, make sure you search Google Liquipedia FGC, because there's a different landing page in particular for the fighting games. And so you can definitely use that when you search for it. And then once you find it, bookmark it, and you can come back here anytime. As you can see here, they all played in separate groups over here. And each group was its own double elimination bracket, though the two players who made it out basically had their losses reset. They said that this is the GSL format, which is the Global StarCraft League format, is how they decided to play this tournament, which is interesting. But, there's definitely pros and cons to this format. I like it because round robin is a little tricky sometimes because there can be collusion and weird stuff going on. But I don't like the fact that in GSL formats, there's a lot of double jeopardy. You end up playing the same player twice a lot of the time. And even though most of the times in this tournament, it wasn't double jeopardy because the person who won first ended up losing the second time, I also wasn't too enamored with the order that they played it because a person who lost the match tended to play immediately. And in these first 8 brackets over here, 7 out of 8 times that person lost. Whoever lost the winners finals match went on to immediately lose the losers finals match. And as Glenn Cravens, aka the game 2K, has done data on, whenever we run winners finals directly into losers finals, yes, the person who lost the winners finals has a miserable win record in the losers finals, which is why we run it in the order that we do at most tournaments, where we do winners finals, then losers semis, and then losers finals, because it gives them that one game of rest. And according to Glenn Cravens' data, the Game 2K's data, then the winner of losers finals leans more towards 50%. So yeah, it's definitely better. I brought it up to the guys running the tournament, and they will take it into consideration. They did the order that they did because, logistics and a lot of weird behind the scenes things that people don't think about. So it's really interesting. But hopefully, if they do this next year, they can change it around a little bit and make it so that the loser doesn't have to play a match right away. At least just give them a break or something. But none of the pools went as we would have expected. So, looking at Group A, for example, I picked Punk and Gachikun to make it out, and it was Ryukichi and Gachikun. And Ryukichi with some super, super clutch wins, too, as well. However, when I made my predictions, I predicted top 3 that Punk wasn't going to be one of them. And one of the reasons why is because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Punk is one of the most fake Evo champions ever, blah, blah, blah. Man, screw the haters, dude. I've often said that me and Punk are the same human being emotionally, except he's way better skillfully. I'm terrible when it comes. I'm not as good as Punk as skill, but emotionally, I feel like we're very similar. And I swear to God, I feel like I know how Punk feels because he's super emotional. After he went 0-2, Tasty Steve interviewed me for a little segment for EWC to publish online somewhere. And Steve asked me, what do you think happened to Punk? And I was like, he just won Evo. I don't know if his heart is in this tournament. Honestly, like a lot of times when you win a tournament, you get that power up and you end up winning more tournaments. But I was just like, I personally am not sure Punk's heart was in this tournament. I really don't. And even after he lost and they interviewed him, he was just like, yeah, I was playing stiff. I don't know what happened, whatever, right? And then I talked to him later on. He was like, yeah, my heart really wasn't in it because I won Evo. And I'm kind of like, he's still on cloud 9 kind of thing. And in fact, he even tweeted, he's like, yeah, I'm probably going to go light on tournaments now. Like, so if anyone wants me to commentate events, like hire me for commentary, you know, like I kind of figured that's what happened to him, honestly. And so, you know, a lot of people are like, oh my God, he's the worst Evo champion ever. He's what? Dude, let the man just rest for a little bit and bask in his victory, dude. Like, seriously. But honestly, that was one of the reasons why I didn't pick Punk to make top 3. Honestly, because I just kept thinking if I was Punk, I really don't know how hard I would try at this tournament. Like, it's weird. Like, but I felt it. I mean, honestly. But yeah, what a crazy result over here. Group B was really unfortunate because it was all the UK players and Angry Bird. I picked Angry Bird and I think I picked Problem X to make it out. So I think I was right on this pool over here. And so they did end up making it out. Although again, Lex beat Problem X and then in the run back, he lost to him. Like I said, the run back situation was unfortunate, there as well. Yeah, it would be interesting if Daigo tried to set up a Kimono Michi with Punk. That'd be cool. Noah the Prodigy did surprise me. Honestly, before the tournament started, all the commentators were talking about this. This was the group that all the commentators were like, a lot of Bison Bucks, not real money. A lot of Bison Bucks were exchanged because of this group. And honestly, so Phenom used both Ken and Cammy, but he was using a lot of Cammy this tournament. Like, I mean, he's the biggest, you know, I don't want to call down player of Ken, but he doesn't believe in Ken like a lot of people do. So it makes sense that he switched to Cammy because Cammy is clearly like top 5 in this game, in my opinion. So I was not expecting, I picked Phenom and Itazan to make it out of this pool. Shows what I know, right? So Noah and Kakeru actually made it out. And after this, everyone was talking about Noah. I mean, Noah was on fire in the first and second phase. He looked absolutely unbeatable. But, you know, I was saying this before the stream started. One of the problems with the gamble style that Noah plays is that it's unstable, right? It can get you killed as well as win you victories. I like how he plays. It's a valid style and it can win tournaments. I compared him to Marn and Punko. Remember Marn's run at NCR, the first season of Street Fighter V, where there was the late sign-up bracket of death at NCR. Basically, there was sign-up and then they opened up emergency sign-ups, but everybody in emergency sign-ups had to play in one pool. And so only one person who did emergency signups could make it out. And Marn was the one that made it out of there. And then he made it like all the way to like 3rd place or something crazy like that. Like, you know, Punko obviously did super well at one Evo with his gamble set style. So Noah the Prodigy, you know, who has won tournaments, got 2nd place at UFA to Angry Bird, right? That's how he qualified. Yeah, it's not just the high risk, high reward. It's also just constant. Don't let him think. Like anytime there's like no one's really sure what's going on, Noah will dash forward or he will drive rush forward. I mean, against Itazan, he did wake up forward dash and he did wake up forward drive reversal, like a drive rush. And you're like, what? Against Lasagna? What are you doing? Right? It's just, don't let people have the chance to think. And when you actually saw Noah beat Problem X in phase 2, you saw that a lot. I was commentating that match and I was like, Problem X is doing things that I've never seen him do before. He's making mistakes that he very rarely makes. And it's because, mental stack overflow strategy. And that's what, Marn, Punko, I also compared it to Ceroblast. She does that strategy a lot as well. And Noah the Prodigy is the latest in that trend of the mental stack overflow strategy. And it works, but it's highly unstable and it's very difficult to consistently win with it. And so I really do think that Noah needs to keep that strategy, but he also needs a backup gear where he turns it down a little bit and starts to play more stable, right? He does have to get a little more stable at some point in time because Burnout versus Ken is not great. And, he ended up losing to Ryukichi and, hang on a second. He ended up losing to Ryukichi and Xiaohai, if I'm not mistaken. And both of those players were using Ken against him. So that's something to keep in mind. But in any case, Noah the Prodigy was still amazing. And if it wasn't for Xiaohai's just ridiculous run, I would just still have said Noah the Prodigy was the MVP of the tournament. It was either going to be him or Hikaru. But then Xiaohai that was exceptional, right? Nobody expected that out of Xiaohai. I did almost pick him to make it out of this group, but I didn't because I was like, people are going to clown on me for saying Xiaohai. God, I should have stuck with that pick. Holy crap. But yeah, Dual Kevin Surprise took out Mena RD as well. I picked Mena and Zen to make it out of there. Again, what do I know? It turned out to be Xiaohai and Dual Kevin. Very impressive. But, Xiaohai also never afraid of using the strongest characters, picking that Bison out there. And I feel like that style suits him more because it's a very active style. It's a very aggressive style. He can scissor kick and drive rush across the screen, et cetera, et cetera. What I said on commentary at EWC, it's a very KOF style. So I think that's why the character works out for him really well, even though later on in the tournament, he did a lot more work with Ken. Although in grand finals, obviously, it was the Bison that really finished the job in the final phase. But yeah, Mena RD going 0-2 is very interesting here. And again, very surprising. I thought the loss to Dual Kevin in particular was shocking. Because again, Mena RD has always had problems against Zen. But it might not even be Zen. Mena RD has problems against DJ, right? He has trouble fighting DJs. Fudo beat him at Capcom Cup, if I'm not mistaken. So Mena RD kind of has a gap in the DJ department. And right now, I think the biggest weakness that Mena RD has is that he went to Japan and he practiced Zangief for 2 weeks in Japan. He even got to number 1 on CFN with Zangief. And when he came out to this tournament, he didn't play Zangief at all. He never played Zangief once. And so right now, Mena RD is really suffering from character crisis. Bitfrost kind of beat me to it in the comments. He says, feel bad for Mena. He just hasn't found his character in season 2 yet. And that's absolutely one of the problems that he has. Anybody who's going to be like, oh my God, Mena's washed up now. I didn't see the chat, so I don't know if people were saying that, but probably because that's the chat. But he'll be fine as soon as he can find his character, right? Yeah, Block is amazing, which is interesting. I talked to Itazan. I was like, do you think Zangief's top 3? And he's like, yes, I think Zangief's top 3. I was like, okay. I know Mena RD thinks that Zangief's really strong. Again, I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Why would you use Zangief if you could use Bison, right? It's just Bison can do as much damage as Zangief can, and they both suffer from the same kind of bad defense. I'm still not a believer in Zangief being top 5. I just feel like the character is just going to get weaker as the season goes, like grapplers always do. Honestly. So, I think that long period of playing Zangief might have hurt Mena a little bit, honestly. Because again, and of course, Mena is going to succeed with Zangief and get to number 1 on CFN. He can do that with basically any character. Remember in season 1, Hibiki made it to number 1 with Lily. Hikaru made it to number 1 with Aki before she got buffed, etc., etc. Getting to number 1 on CFN isn't proof that the character is strong, right? It's proof that the player is 1, good, and 2, very dedicated. So I still personally, it's going to take a lot for someone to convince me that Zangief is top 5 in this game. Honestly, I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for saying that, but I do think that that's kind of where hurt Mena a little bit because he hasn't been playing a consistent character this whole entire time. I think if he just sticks with Blanca, I think it would benefit him greatly. Honestly, he did play Blanca in this tournament, but like I said, the last 2 weeks he's been playing nothing but Zangief, right? So even the best is going to have gain a little rust in that kind of time. Group E, I picked VX Bao to being one of the top 3. He was my choice for the random guy who makes top 3 because there's always one guy who randomly makes top 3 that you're like, wait, how did he make top 3, at events like these? Obviously, he didn't make it out of the group phase, so I was wrong there. But Hikaru, dude, this Aki, oh my God, Hikaru's ridiculous, dude. I love his Aki, but Hikaru really is Asia's Ending Walker. Like, I see so much parallels between Hikaru and Ending Walker, dude. Like, they're both students of the game. Like, they study the hell out of the game and they approach it in such a very unique and interesting way, like the way they approach it. It's really fascinating and I love it. But Hikaru's Aki is ridiculous. And yeah, Chris Wong, I mean, he got bodied in the first match that he played and then he won 2 straight. So I was pleasantly surprised that he made it out there, but really happy for him. Group F, Kawano and Tachikawa, Nephew Oil King. I had Kawano and Nephew making it out of there. No surprise, Tachikawa did. I mean, Ed player. It's not the modern that makes him do. I mean, I know everybody was mad at modern controls, especially because Tachikawa made it far. But Tachikawa is also a really freaking good fighting game player. So, the modern is over exaggerated on how much it helped him. Definitely helped him in some situations, but it's not Street Fighter. Oh yeah, Street Fighter 5 Ed, exactly. Yeah, he was basically playing right. Like Street Fighter 5 Ed is kind of the same, right? Like, and even his best move wasn't even a modern control, it was Psycho Flicker, right? So he's not even I don't know. Ed was modern in 5 as well, so. But again, Nephew barely lost to Tachikawa. And in fact, Tachikawa thought he lost. He had a reverse Moshige moment. He thought he lost, so he got up from the desk. And then he realized he didn't lose and jumped back down. Everyone's joking that Nephew should have been oh, and stood up as well. And then at the last second sat back down and then started beating him up, which would have been hilarious, dude. But unfortunately, Nephew, too honorable to pull such a thing. But Kawano, again, everybody always doubts Kawano. But he always shows up for every big tournament, dude. I don't know how you doubt Kawano, honestly. Kawano is just ridiculous. I had picked him to make it out of this pool, and in fact, I almost had him in my top 3. I should have put him in my top 3, because then I would have looked really, really smart. Group G, I mean, Tokido and Knuckle-Doo not making it? I definitely picked Tokido and Knuckle-Doo making it out of this pool. Oh, man. But, yeah, I mean, Knuckle-Doo had the unfortunate thing where his controller screwed him against Tokido, and then he had to play a match right away, and then I don't think he was back into it. So, Lashar, obviously amazing. He only lost 1 game until he got to phase 3. Honestly, 6-1. And then, down here, you'll see Lashar, Until he finally lost over here, he'd basically not lost a single game. It was actually kind of surprising. I hope recent events end the discussion of Akuma not being tournament viable. Who has said Akuma's not tournament viable? Like, clearly the character is tournament viable, although I still may argue that Ken is the better Shoto. As worst Shoto, I think he's the best Shoto. I think he's still the best Shoto in the game. I really think so. Oh, man. And, Lashar has been living in Japan now. He's living in Japan for SFL. So he's going to actually play in SFL Japan. And so he moved to Japan for temporary. Remember, he's a Korean player, but he is going to be in Street Fighter League Japan because he moved out there specifically to play in Street Fighter League. So... Logan is gonna fight me. I don't even know if Logan believes it anymore, dude. I don't even know if Logan can believe that Ken's not the best Shoto anymore. This one was the surprise. Again, that psychological empath part of me thought that Big Bird was going to destroy everybody in this tournament. However, I really didn't account for the fact that he would end up getting that nervous. And the worst part about it is all the commentators were talking about this. If they played in backwards order, let's just say, they played H, G, F, E, D all the way to the other side, Big Bird would have made it out of the group. He would have made it out of the group. The reason why he didn't make it out of the group is because Punk and Meta RD went 0-2. And that started triggering some of the nerves in him. And he got worried. You could see it on his Twitter. He was like, man, Justin, don't bet on me. Like, oh God, the Justin curse. And like, oh, this is like he psyched himself out, unfortunately. But that's just going to be something that, again, this is what happens, right? I mean, I've been saying on commentary all the time that you can't escape the nerves. Like you play fighting games, you get nervous at tournaments. A lot of people are like, how do the pros play without getting nervous? I'm like, they're nervous all the time. Then you see someone like Noah the Prodigy who's like, man, I never get nerves. I never get nerves. And it certainly looked like that way until he finally lost and he started looking nervous. It was weird, right? But, you can't escape nerves at fighting games. You just can't. Like, it's so hard, dude. Like, you have to learn how to channel those nerves like Ryukichi did. He was super nervous. You remember the shaking hand, the hand on his chest, the covering his face. But then all of a sudden he light DP'd a Dragon Lash and then he OD DP'd through Xiaohai's Fireball. Ryukichi was the only one who beat Xiaohai in this tournament. And he channeled those nerves into reactions, into just the adrenaline. And that's kind of what you have to do, right? It's hard. It's very, very hard. And it's tricky, dude. It's tricky. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when they recorded Street Fighter League last year, Xiaohai had done nothing in Street Fighter 6. In fact, he looked like Street Fighter 6 was not going to be his game at all. And it was only in the past couple of months that Xiaohai has really started demonstrating real synergy with the game, which is why I wanted to pick him to make it out of Group D. But I chickened out because Mena and Zen were in the group. And so I just went with them instead. But honestly, it's the reason why I was kind of like, Xiaohai, I think he could do really good here. So, dude, I was worried that Ryukichi was going to collapse 100%. But as you can see, all the players at the top two qualified. Their losses reset. They were put into the same group phases over here. And then in this one over here, I predicted Angry Bird and Gotcha-kun to make it out. And sure enough, they did. They made it out of here. And Angry Bird was looking absolutely invincible at this point. He was looking absolutely invincible, which is why the third phase was such a surprise. But here we see Ryukichi and Xiaohai. So like I said, Ryukichi, the only one that was able to defeat Xiaohai. But Xiaohai played crazy, dude. He played so good against Noah. And, he played so good against Ryukichi and stuff. It's just really, really surprising this one, because look at this. Noah the Prodigy 3-0 over Problem X. He shook Problem X, dude. Problem X looked absolutely lost. When I saw him go up for that air throw and he missed, like on commentary, I was like, no, okay, like that's it. Like I've determined that Problem X is kind of like flustered. Like he was trying to find a crazy solution to a problem, and he tried to do it when Noah jumped backwards. It wasn't even a forward jump. Noah jumped backwards. He jumped up and tried to air throw him. And I've seen that happen to a lot of players. They, when they are just flustered, they start doing things that they normally don't do. And so, yeah, I mean, what an unfortunate situation here. However, if they played again, I would bet on Problem X. I would bet on Problem X is a problem solver. Trust me. He is really good at making the adjustments that he needs. He's really good at analyzing situations. So I won't be surprised to see Problem X, if he ever fights Noah again, to actually do really well against Noah. Ryukichi, this was the funny story, because Xiaohai played Ken Mears versus Ryukichi, and Ryukichi actually said he really didn't want to fight Bison, because he's like, I lose to every Bison in Japan. It's like, I can't fight Bison. However, Xiaohai the day before asked Angry Bird for practice, and so he played his Bison against Angry Bird's Ken, and Angry Bird beat him like 40-3 or something like that, or 40-5 or something. And so Xiaohai's like, Bison against Ken is terrible. So he went to Ken instead. So weirdly enough, his practice session with Angry Bird hurt him here. But, since Xiaohai ended up winning, maybe it wasn't really that bad anyway. Then Noah ended up losing to Ryukichi, which was a dismantling, strange Ryukichi. But again, Ken does really well against burnout characters. It's really hard to burn yourself out and keep Ken out. Ken is a lot of good ways to get in when you're burned out, and then you have to deal with the Jinrai loops, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really hard to fight Ken when you're burned out. And so the strategy that Noah has just might not be as effective against Ken. So he ends up losing to Ryukichi and Xiaohai, both of who used it. But Xiaohai, I mean, you can see super close matches here against Problem X and Noah the Prodigy. In this pool, again, Hikaru, like I said, just absolutely amazing. That Aki is ridiculous. And this kid is going places. Can't wait to see him do more. Kawano, like I said, steps up at big moments all the time. All the time. As you can see here, he actually beat Bonchan 3-2. And then he ended up losing to Hikaru 3-1 because Hikaru was nuts. And then Kawano ended up beating Bonchan at the very end 3-2. So a lot of close sets, but Kawano, again, he's just so good at clutching things out. He's an Evo champion for a reason, honestly. The Ken versus Bison match. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think Bison does well against Ken, but again, look, I don't know. I won't pretend to know Bison as well as a lot of other people because he's still the newest DLC. So I still, haven't seen enough of him to feel confident on the matchups. Yeah, Xiaohai was the one who brought the wife to the tournament to watch. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Higuchi and Tachikawa, kind of surprised. Lashar is the one that everybody thought would make it out because, see, up to this point, he had literally only lost one game here, right? So Lashar up here only lost one game, 6-1. And then he beat Tachikawa 3-0. Tachikawa, the crazy modern Ed who was blowing everybody up. In fact, Tachikawa even had to bust out Manon because he just basically gave up. And then Lashar lost 0-3 to Higuchi. What happened? I don't think Ed is bad against Guile. I thought Ed actually did decent against Guile. I don't know what happened, but he ended up losing. And then Tachikawa ends up, and then Tachikawa wins the run back against Lashar 3-1. So I don't know what happened with Lashar. everybody's been talking about him as one of the strongest players, and he didn't make it out of phase 2. Very surprising to a lot of people. But Higuchi and Tachikawa are the ones that made it out. And so you end up seeing over here, the third phase, this is where everyone played. And of course, Tachikawa beating Angry Bird 5-1 was a huge shock, considering how Angry Bird had been playing. I mean, Angry Bird, you can see over here, 3-1 against Kakeru, and then 3-1 against Gachikun. Over here was 3-0 over Rain Pro, and then 3-1 over Lex. He was dominating everybody. And then somehow Tachikawa blew him up 5-1. It was crazy. It was absolutely nuts. And then we had 2 matches going to the final game and final round. And this is the match of the tournament right here. Hikaru and Xiaohai. Because Xiaohai was down 2-4. And again, if this was any other format, Xiaohai would have lost. But he had the ability to win the last 3 games, to come back and win. And not only did he win, literally Hikaru dropped a combo that would have won him the set. And that's why Hikaru had his head down and he was crying after he lost. Because he knew he won that, dude. He knew he won the match. And unfortunately, one drop, and that's what happened. And that's going to allow me the chance to get on my soapbox and say, this is why execution is important. Because drops are good. Drops are good. If everything was super easy, like if it was like, oh, fighting games should just be mind games, it should be like chess. Like if that's the case, fighting games would be boring. Drops are interesting. Drops are interesting. Execution mistakes are interesting. I'm sorry. They are. That's how I will always believe that. I will always believe that that kind of stuff is really, really important. So yeah, you'll never convince me otherwise. But this is not round robin. None of this was round robin, Super Shinobi. None of this tournament was round robin. Every one of these groups was a double elimination bracket. And then they went to a single elimination 1st to 5 bracket. But both of these matches went to final game, final round, dude. Like, it couldn't have gotten any better than that. These 2 sets were ridiculous. And then Gachikun blew up Higuchi 5-1. But again, I don't know why nobody picked Gachikun except for me and Logan. I don't understand that. Like, why would nobody else have picked Gachikun to make top 3? Especially when all of Japan was like, yeah, Gachikun's the best in Japan right now. It's like, Gachikun's ridiculous. And he's using Rashid. And then Kawano finally ended Tachikawa's run. Again, final game, final round. Much to the joy, I'm sure, of all modern haters in the chat. Because a lot of people were probably saying Tachikawa cheated against Angry Bird with modern controls. It's like, whatever, dude. Like, seriously. But Xiaohai then ended up beating Gachikun. This was the one that surprised me here. This is where I thought Xiaohai's run was going to stop. This is where I thought it was going to stop over here. But Xiaohai beat Gachikun. As soon as he beat Gachikun, I was like, dude, this is Xiaohai's tournament to take. This is seriously Xiaohai's tournament to take. And he beat Kawano 5-2, and he won.